Good morning and welcome to our worldwide audience for Sports Africa Live. This is the third session that we've done. The first two sessions are up, and you can check them out on our page, and I think on Facebook you can see them there, and you can find information and links online at our sportinafrica.org website. So my name is Martha Saavedra. We have moved to an online format, and now we are having our third panel, and this panel is on African athletics. So we have, with the help of particularly Michelle Sykes and Simone Akindes, assembled a wonderful panel, a diverse panel from across the continent to talk about the issues in African athletics. Of course, at this point in the time that we have, it won't be enough to cover everything, but we will try to cover some major topics, and then hopefully this will lead to some further conversations down the road. So right now I am going to introduce the panelists, give you a little bit of background on them, and then we'll proceed to some conversation. So first I want to introduce Norman Ontong, who is a South African athletics coach and founder of the nonprofit Fit to Run that seeks to help young athletes from disadvantaged communities in South Africa. He is formerly a rugby player and then became a committed road racer and won silver at two world-renowned ultra-marathon events in South Africa, the Two Oceans and the Comrades. Forgot to mention was that for all of our panelists, there's material online, so you can go and look at a wonderful video that Norman and his colleagues at Fit to Run put online. So please do go check out on the website for these. Our next panelist is Justice Dipeba, a former sprinter who, with Ed Newville, who's also on the panel, competed at the 1996 Summer Olympics in Atlanta and the 1997 World Championships in Greece. A 200-meter specialist, Dipeba's personal best for that distance is 20.95, set in 1995. He is a sports officer in the Department of Culture, Sport, and Recreation at the University of Botswana, and has been a senior national athletics coach for more than 10 years, specializing in sprints, relays, and hurdles. He currently coaches another one of our panelists here, Isaac Makwala. Isaac is an Olympian, a multiple time World Championship and Commonwealth Games qualifier. He's also, in addition to working with Justice, he's also worked with Anthony Kofi, who's also on the panel. Isaac holds Botswana's national records for the 100 meters, 200 meters, and 400 meters. In 2015, he set the African record for the 400 meters in 43.72, a time that ranks him 5th overall for the 400. When he ran 19.96 for 200 meters, he became only the 3rd African after another member of our panel, Frankie Fredericks, and Francis Obekwela, to dip under 20 seconds for the 200 meters. Dr. Jepkori Rose Chepyater Thompson is a professor of sports management in the Department of Kinesiology at the University of Georgia. Her research focuses on women in sport in Africa, indigenous sport and games, sport labor migration, among many other things. She's published more than 77 journal articles and book chapters, edited 3 books, and served as the keynote speaker at our conference, at our first conference that we had in Ohio many years ago. She is a NCAA champion and has been inducted into the Sports Hall of Fame at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And during her running days in Kenya and the US, she held the African record for the 1,500 meters and the 3,000 meters. Our next panelist, Luzanne Kotsi, is a blind classification T11 athlete based in Bloemfontein, South Africa. She's competed in 4 world championships and 1 Paralympic Games in Rio 2016. She competes in middle to long distances from the 800 meter up to the marathon. She holds the African record in the marathon and 800 meters respectively, and is the world record holder in the 5,000 meters. Prior to becoming an attorney, Edward Neufel was an accomplished collegiate and international athlete. He was one of the University of North Carolina's best international competitors of all time, having competed at the Olympics and World Championships for his native Liberia. As a member of Liberia's 4x100 meter relay team, he raced at the 1996 Olympics in Atlanta and the 1997 World Athletic Championships in Greece, and set a Liberian national record on both occasions. Frankie Fredericks, an MBA graduate from BYU, was a professional 100 and 200 meter runner from 1991 to 2004. During that period, he became the most accomplished African sprinter. Upon retirement, he converted into a World Athletics Administrator for the IAAF and the IOC, is also a successful businessman on many boards of directors, and is the founder of the Frank Fredericks Foundation that supports Namibian athletes. Speaking of administrators, we also have Aziz Daouda. He's a well-known and respected personality in Morocco and African athletics. He coached Saïd Aouti and Neza Bouadine, two of the most famous Moroccan athletes in the 1980s and 90s. He's a shrewd administrator and has overseen the rise of Moroccan athletics to its current respectable world position. He's published books, taught at the university, and as the current technical and development director of the African Athletics Confederation, he's not done yet for the advancement of Moroccan and African athletics. Finally, Anthony Kofi is also with us today. And if you know Marie-Josée Talou, the female sprinter from Côte d'Ivoire, then you have to know Anthony. He is her current coach, and he's transformed her into a world-class sprinter. They're both from Côte d'Ivoire. He's coached many other famous African athletes, such as another one of our panelists, Isaac Makwala. And like Aziz, he has a master's level education in sports and physical activity in Canada, and has a vast coaching experience. He's dedicated his long career to the detection and training of African sprinters. So you can see we have a wide range of panelists here, people who have competed at multiple levels, people who have helped others to compete, and people who have nurtured along the athletics across Africa and who have researched it. So I am going to start our questions here with Rose, our professor from the University of Georgia. And what the question to you, Rose, is to give us a big sort of overview and to think about, we have people from all over the continent here, but there are some parts of the continent which seem to be identified with certain athletics. So Kenya and Ethiopia for long distance, Morocco also, maybe sprints in West Africa. Can you say anything, is from your research, can you tell us anything why certain parts of the continent seem to be such hotbeds for athletics? Or maybe that's just something, maybe that's just a misunderstanding of what's actually happening across the continent.
I grew up in the epicenter of distance running, which is Iten, located on the northwest Rift Valley, about 5 hours drive from Nairobi, the capital city. It's a high altitude, it's 8,000. So you can say, or you can actually generalize to say, the distant runners who have come from Ethiopia, and particularly Kenya, in particular where I grew up, it's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle that we start when we're young. And all of us started herding cows, doing chores. You go to the forest, collect some firewood, you go to the river, collect some water, you go to the market 3 miles, and you can consider that as a form of training. And on top of that, you run to school with your little backpack, which is 2.5 miles away. and you don't think of it as training, but you have to run and get there by 8 o'clock, or by the time the bell rings 5 minutes to 8. And then you come run again at noon for lunch, back to school and back home. So basically you can have one major point, it's a lifestyle. 2, it is the diet that we eat. We rarely eat meat, but we eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, beans and so forth, and of course, lots of milk. The Kalenjin in particular, we are known for milk drinkers, as milk drinkers in the continent. We love the milk, really is part of our diet. And also culture. Culturally, we are trained to believe in yourself. You're trained also to believe that we work together as a group of runners. And we're also trained to believe at no given day, your body would be 100%. So you depend on the other runners to help you out on those bad days. So if you consider all those factors, the school system, which is founded on athletics, the cultural background, the dietary practices, and also the lifestyle, that would make us who we are. On top of all of that, when a runner runs overseas, when you run from the village, you represent your clan. I belong to the Buffalo clan. When you move out of village, you represent your community in general. When you move out of Kenya, you represent Kenya. So when I ran in the Commonwealth Games in '78 in Edmonton, Canada, I didn't run for myself, I ran for Kenya. So those are the major factors I can share at the moment, and that in terms of why Kenyan runners run very well. We have a structured athletic system through the school system. It's very strong.
Well, thank you for that. That's really inspiring there. Maybe we can turn to Morocco and Aziz. Given what Rose has said about Kenya, what do you think of the key ingredients for the success of Moroccan athletes?
There is an historical issue. As you may know, that the first Africans that who wins medals at the Olympics, it was in the Olympics of Rome, in Roma in 1960. And the first medalists were African medalists were an Ethiopian, Bekele, and the Moroccan second, Radi. And that's give Morocco, the young people in Morocco, the possibility and an image and like icons. They were Radi was a kind of icon in Morocco. So a lot of people start to run from there, and it became a kind of industry starting from the end of the 70s, especially with Saïd Awita, and especially when the government took took a big initiative creating a school for athletics. It was like it is really a center, which is called today Centre National d'Athlétisme, Institut National d'Athlétisme, and it started from an idea with Saïd Awit and myself, and we just launched a kind of prospection and talent detection around the country, and the best talented people were admitted in that center, and it became like an industry, and we started to produce performances. There is no secret, no. We started to put in application what we've learned at the school as physiologists, as biomechanists, as psychologists, and the crew, the team was various, and all the aspects of high performance practice were in that center. It's still working till today. It started at the end of the 70s, and it's still working, and it gives us the chance to be for like 25 years among the first 10th country in athletics around the world. And why middle distances? Because we are a very old population, and we are not physically, we are, this is much more appropriate to our physiologic matter, kind of physiologic qualities and biometric qualities that we can have in this region of the world. We're not very tall, we're not very strong, but we are very endurant and resistant. That's why we focused on middle distances and hurdles.
Okay, thank you. Given that we're talking about middle distances, long distances, I'd like to go to Lausanne right now in South Africa and ask you about your trajectory in sports and also in these distances, and specifically about the challenges and in Paralympics and the work that you have done to bring that to in your career.
Hi, Martha. Hi, everyone. I would just like to say thank you for the opportunity to be on the panel. I think it's really a great initiative for Sports Africa, and I think this will contribute a lot towards, you know, conversations going forward. I think for me, some challenges that I've faced has been the fact that sort of athletes with disabilities are sometimes we feel, which is not always necessarily the case, but sometimes we feel a little bit forgotten. And the media coverage and so forth is not necessarily always the same, but on a positive note, sort of, I think athletics really changes the lives of many people. And for me, it's been a way that I can also, you know, touch people's lives and give hope. So for me, athletics has been a very instrumental tool in, you know, giving others hope and giving people in different communities hope and making them realize that things that you can achieve despite all your challenges. So I don't necessarily want to speak about the challenges only, although I think there are a few. But I think for me, what I've tried to do throughout my career is, you know, just advocate for persons with disabilities in sport. I was also part of I think it was the 2018 conference that we had in Bloemfontein, where I am based at the University of the Free State. So I've started doing some academic work, trying to research parts of the sport as well, which I'll probably focus more on when I'm finished doing the actual sport. But for me, I think athletics, it's really sort of built a lot of perspective, and I think participating in sport across the continent and globally, you get to know other people's circumstances, and you get to know a lot of what other people go through, and it makes you more of a critical thinker. So for me, athletics and sport in general is really, it's a great way to, you know, globalize your thinking. Yeah, so that's my take on it.
Thanks so much. Speaking of globalized thinking and challenges, I want to turn to Ed Neufel right now and ask you. Also, we're switching from the longer distances to the sprints here, but I want to ask, and to a very small country, Liberia. So can you tell us about your experiences representing Liberia at the Olympic level, and especially when Liberia was in the middle of a civil war?
So it's a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate, you know, the time that we have and the chance to speak. My journey into track and field, I would say it was more of once I came to the U.S. You know, growing up, you know, you would have a sports day, you would run the 100, you would run the 200 long jump, but the structure of track and field was more just for a set period of time, just for a weekend or a week. It was only until I came to the U.S. That the possibility of track and field cross country came. And quite frankly, I got into hurdles just by chance. It was an event that I saw It was an event that I decided to just try out. And eventually, things worked out well. But the transition going to the Olympics presented a dilemma because, as you know, during that period of time, at least the 90s, Liberia was in the civil crisis. I watched the Olympics in Spain. I decided at that time that this is something that I would like to do. I saw runners, from around the world, and I thought that, hey, this is a chance, at least for me to represent my home and project some positivity on there. Now, mind you, I was about 15, 16. So the reality in 1992, 4 years later, was kind of a far-fetched dream. But during those 4 years, I did well in high school. I went to UNC Chapel Hill, and I had the chance to also train with a good group of people. And I made the decision in December of 1995 that I'll go back home and express my interest in running, which was a very tense period of time because at that time the Civil War was still going on. And when I went to Liberia, what I found was the response to me was, well, if you can get some other Liberian athletes, you can put together this team. To my surprise, there were all the other athletes in the US that had the similar vision. And so when I returned in January of 1996 back to school at UNC Chapel Hill, I got in touch with those athletes, and the 1996 4x100 meter relay dream started. As a naive 19-year-old, there are a lot of things that I didn't know apart from the running stage. But we also had the challenges of the perception that some athletes before us had, or whether or not athletes from my home could actually run the times that were presented. 2 months before the summer games started, there was a civil crisis that kind of restarted, and communications with the federation was lost. And we found ourselves negotiating with the IOC and the events by ourselves, as well as reaching out to Reebok to suit the team. And so those were experiences that I, as a 19-year-old, was thrust into to kind of navigate not only the training, but also dealing with the backside of the sport, the perception of the athletes and the team, and keeping that dream alive. Most of the Liberian athletes were athletes that were based here in the US, athletes that came from Liberia and started running track. And even now, there's still a good bit of the good athletes that have left Liberia to come to the US. So I would say it's more of a diaspora team. But the Olympics, coming into the Olympics from Liberia at that time and dealing with the nuances of the civil crisis, the nuances of trying to get, make sure that, you carry out your dream, was something that I think is a little bit unique. Not every athlete, is tasked with that. But it was a success. And for me and my teammates, most importantly, it was a chance to show Liberia in a positive light. That also, from my point of view, in 1997, we went to the World Championships. And I will share this was, we had a teammate who was a sprinter, and he advanced to the semifinals of the 100. And we kind of ran into an official that we have, we kind of had talks with before. Mm-hmm. And jokingly, we said, look, you doubted what we could do. And he responded, he said, yeah, well, that's the semifinals. Let's see what you all can do past that. And so I bring that up because uniquely from the Liberian perspective is that as a result of the civil crisis, as a result of the challenges that we had, the perception from within the organization was one of questionable as to whether these times that the team were running were real. Now, there may have been some basis for that as well, but this just kind of shows you some of the challenges that I guess from a small country we had to face. Especially in Liberia, track and field is not a major sport. Football is the primary sport. And so funding, recognition, and all those things go towards football and the football team and the athletes. So we're a little bit on the back end and trying to project ourselves and to carry on from that point.
Thanks so much for that. It's very rich. And I want to turn to another one of the 1996 Olympians, Justice Tepeda from Botswana, which relatively speaking, has a small population. So I'm wondering, given what Edward said about their experience in 1996 and having to make it happen, I'm wondering if you could maybe reflect on your experience, Justice, in 1996, and then now, given your role in developing athletics within Botswana, how maybe have things changed over time, or maybe not. So if you could speak a little bit about your experience and then the athletics today in Botswana. Did Justice go? I think did we just lose Justice? Yeah, Isaac, could you maybe speak about your experience, and we'll get back to Justice. Isaac, so you're one of the current athletes and currently running for Botswana. And I know that you're running in the Diamond League, which unfortunately, like a lot of things, is suspended right now. But maybe you could speak a little bit about your experience as a Botswanan athlete and the experience today that you're having in the Diamond League.
Hello, everyone. So sorry for my camera. My camera is not working. I think for me, the experience that I got from the Diamond Leagues is a very big experience. Experience that lead to championships like World Championships and Olympics. That's what I experienced from the Diamond League, because the same Diamond League that we are running, I think the same people who are competing with are the same people that we are competing with in those big championships. So I think I gained a lot of experience from those competition for the Diamond Leagues. They are helping us as athletes more, because that's the way we earn our living in the Diamond Leagues. I think for me, I can say the Diamond Leagues made me who I am today. I think the way I'm living, I would say the experience is high for now for me. Since I started my first Diamond League in 2014, that's when I started to run in Diamond Leagues. So until today, 2020, I think I have gained a lot of experience there in Diamond Leagues. That's why I can manage to compete in qualify for the Olympics, to qualify for the World Championship. So I took my experience there. Justice.
So we're reflecting on...
that's beautiful, yeah.
Yes, after listening to Ed talk about his experience in Liberia from 1996 and that point of time, and having to make it happen on their own, the athletes did. And then Isaac now talking about the Diamond Leagues and how important that is. So that's almost like two different ends of a continuum of having to do it yourself, DIY running versus, a whole infrastructure, global infrastructure that can help develop you. Can you speak a little bit about your own experience, both as an athlete, but then also developing sport in Botswana to this point now in the context of a global set of competitions?
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I had some technical problems at the beginning of this. I'm not sure what went wrong. But anyway, yes, during our times, if I go back during the time when I was an athlete, it was a little bit different. We basically kind of, like you say, do it yourself. We were kind of doing stuff on our own and not having a lot of support, not even from the government, not from, this time around, people like Isaac, they've got sponsorship, they've got managers and stuff like that. But during our time as an athlete, it was more of doing it on your own. You had people maybe trying to help you, but they were not maybe up to scratch in terms of looking after you or coaching you to the top level. And then maybe now coming back into the coaching, I was lucky enough through the running, I was able to get on a track scholarship where I went to the US and I continue my running. And that's where also my coaching started from, after seeing how they are doing it, in terms of supporting the athletes in order to get the results. And then it's something that I've learned. And then when I came back to Botswana, that is something that I had to do in terms of coaching, making sure that the athletes get the right programs, the athletes are being looked after, the athletes are just being made aware of the importance of running, in terms of creating jobs, making them better people, and all those kind of things. Also now coming back with the experience of coaching, and if you go back a little bit and look at the results that we get coming out of Botswana, you see that with coaching in place, we are able to get a better result. We are able to match the world. We are able to compete with other countries that are well advanced in terms of that athlete support. So really. Yes, the support of the world and the structure that are in place nowadays, we are able to see a lot of top athletes coming out of Africa.
All right, thank you. Well, speaking of coaching, I want to turn to Kofi Anthony right now, and you are currently the coach of Marie-José Talou, and I know she was looking forward to Tokyo 2020, and her training right now is maybe put on hold, on pause. It's hard to train when there's all the social distancing and everything with COVID. But I'm wondering if you could speak about your experience working with her and other athletes, and what are the key factors for her success and for others? What is it like to coach in this current moment for Côte d'Ivoire and in African athletics?
I saw one question who asked me that why Talou is not tall and she runs fast. Yeah, I want just tell you, sprinter don't depend on the size. All depend of your anatomic and physiologic mass structure, your muscular structure, and your training program process, your own motivation. But the case of Talou have natural speed. She have fast and strong contact on the track is important for sprint. The correlation between she's speed and she's strides is very good for her side. Between 40 and 80 meters, Talou can run. She's stride is more 2 meters. You imagine. Talou have explosive strength, good stretch, and fighting spirit. She also like athletics also, she's always motivated to grow. It's more important. But to be strong in the sprint is first condition is your natural talent. Talu's side is not a problem because she's not alone. Sherian Fraser also is not high. She's not tall. The lady, we have African record women, 100-meter hurdles. Gloria Lozier also is a short, like a 2 apple, but she has good speed.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the technical aspects of coaching, because I think that's something, it definitely shows how important it is for understanding the kinesiology, understanding the techniques, and in the environment, and what it takes, the spirit that it takes to run. I want to turn to Norman right now in South Africa. So we've just heard about a top athlete who is a contender for a gold medal. And I think as soon as those Olympics can happen, I think we are definitely going to be looking in that race with Marie José. So I'm curious though, because that's at the top end, and we've been talking a lot about the top end of sport. But with Norman, you are focusing on the grassroots. But so Norman, though, I'm curious. While some of your athletes may have aspirations to that elite level, I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about your experience at the grassroots. And as Anthony was saying, for Marie José, that's fighting spirit. So what do you see at the grassroots level, and what is it the success that keeps you and your athletes going?
Yes. Yes, I'm coming from Worcester area in the Western Cape. It's part of a very poor area. So all of our athletes are from disadvantaged areas, and we are helping them there. And as you said, we're working with at grassroots level. We have 2 coaches there for to run. One to sprinting, and me is the middle distance coach. So we had a lot of struggles there because we're coming from gang-related areas and crime areas and stuff. So for us, we try to help the youth athletes, and then from there they become elite athletes, and then they go to universities, and there they go further. But that is a problem for our young athletes coming from poorer areas. There's no or none financial support for them, so they really struggle.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So actually, at this point, I would like to turn to Frank Fredericks. After hearing this range of experiences over time, from the Olympics back in 1996 to the Diamond League right now, to the upcoming Tokyo Olympics, from Paralympics to the sprints to the long distance, and then also at the grassroots. Frank, you have such great experience across many different aspects of track and field. And the question, there is a specific question we have, and one of them has to do with the championships that are taking place outside of the continent, the Diamond League that happens outside of the continent. From your perspective, looking at this over time, how are we helping to develop athletes on the continent when they have to travel all the time? So how can there be more development on the continent, given that everybody has to travel outside for the big competitions?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for making me part of this panel. Obviously honored to be around such esteemed colleagues in the coaches and also in the athletes. Of course, as if I think back of my career, I think the one thing I would have liked is to have a championships at home. And I think that is probably what Isaac is also wishing. It's always nice to run at home. It is nice to have your own crowd, to be able to do that. And I think we are moving forward in that direction. I think we would have had the under-20 IAAF championships in Kenya, and we will have the youth games in Senegal. So I think it is coming to Africa, and I think we are only looking forward to see the World Championships and hopefully also the Olympic Games on our continent. I think that will boost the athletes, because it's nice to wake up in your own country, to go and participate in your own in front of your own people. Because I mean, if I think back in '96, I mean, I lost two incredible medals to two incredible guys. But I think Michael Johnson had the edge over me because 80,000 people in Atlanta was cheering for him, even though I was the favorite to win. So I think that made the difference, that I ran 1968 and he ran 1932. So I think that is the difference, and that is what we as African athletes are asking. That is what we as African athletes are craving for these events to come to our local shores, so that the Kenyans can run at home in the competition at home, the Ethiopians, because it would be nice to have that, because I mean, that is what we are training for as athletes. And now that Namibia is independent for 30 years, I would like an event like this to come back to Namibia, because that way generations can then see, kids can see, because now everything is in Europe, everything is in America, everything is in Asia. And it is difficult for our athletes to dream and really say that I want to run in front of my mother, or I want to run in front of my friends, in front of my people. So that is what, as administrators, we have to strive to try and see whether we can get these events to Africa, so that our athletes can compete at home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks. I maybe Luzanne can address this right now. I mean, as an athlete who's competing, and I think this may be a question Isaac can also maybe speak to this. You have to earn a living. I mean, you don't run for free, or you know, it takes work to train, and so you need to be able to have that space. And so, you know, what is it like to try to make a living, enough of a living that you can pursue your sport? So maybe first Luzanne, and then Isaac can address this, trying to make a living while you're training.
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, for me currently, I'm not good. Well, I don't want to say I'm not good enough. But with parasport, like I mentioned before, it's more challenging in terms of you don't easily get sponsorship. There's not really much media coverage. We don't really we have a smaller structure than a Diamond League, what we call Grand Prix, but they're definitely not on the same level as what a Diamond League would be. For example, almost none of them have prize money. So for me currently, I'm doing athletics and I have a full-time job. So for me, you know, that's the kind of challenge. You don't necessarily have enough time for everything, and you don't necessarily have, you know, the optimal amount of time to condition, to run, to rest. Because obviously your recovery, a lot of it is actually just, you know, you're doing your day job. So I think for me, as that's my experience as a South African para athlete, you have the odd occasion where, you know, you can get prize money, but it's definitely not enough to earn a living from. And I think sponsorships from companies like Nike or Adidas or so forth, I think that does make a lot of difference. You know, for I know some sponsorships have been withdrawn in the last few years. I guess because everyone's, you know, having hard times and so forth. But I don't think at the moment there's enough media coverage for companies, you know, to really say I can benefit from this. That's a challenge for me. I've recently partnered up with On Running for an ambassadorship, which I hope I can take the relationship forward. But I've been running now for roughly 7 to 8 years. And this is the first time I've been approached, you know, for even an ambassadorship as a para-athlete.
Oh, very interesting. So Isaac, maybe you can talk about, I mean, partly the question is money, but the fact that you have to go outside of Africa to get that money. In the Diamond League you can, but there's also a lot of pressure and competition. And I'm going to mention maybe the unmentionable, but the specter that comes out a lot, and that is doping, and how much of a maybe a temptation, but also a threat that is, because money is so important and people are very keen to get that. So I'm curious about your perspective first on having to go outside of the continent, and how performance enhancing drugs impact your experience in athletics.
Yeah, I think for competitions, I think I would say it's going to be hard. It's hard for Africa. So I see now people in America, people in Asia, they are competing. But in Africa, we are not competing, because now we need more technology to compete. Like the race was on Zurich, people were competing in different countries. So which means, but Africa was not in, but most of the country were there. So which means it's going to be hard for Africa to do the same, which means leadership in Africa. Mm-hmm. Africa should stand up and make competition for themselves also, like, because now we are putting everything on Europe, to go to Europe. But now, for now, we can't even travel to go to another country because everything's locked now. The airports are still closed. The diamonds are going on. Whether Africa they are there or they are not there, but the diamond leagues are going on, which means it's going to affect us more, because for Africa to travel, we can't travel now, which means we are just here training, and that's all, you see. So even for the dopings, for now, I think they were still closed for the doping, no testing, nothing, because everyone's still closed. I think maybe when the times comes on, they will start testing, which is gonna take long for other athletes, which means athletes will need to be always tested to be sure about themselves. So now it's gonna take long, then you don't know what you are eating, whether you are eating is good or not. So which this thing gonna affect us when we come back again for running again.
And I'm actually, just a quick follow-up, what do you think of the inspiration games that just took place, these virtual running games, as an athlete?
Yeah, those are the good games. Inspiration games, those are good games for the athletes. I think they make athletes to give up, you know. They make sure that there's still something that will come on. But like I said, now it's only happening in Europe, but it's not happening in Africa, which means only athletes in Europe and America, those are the ones who are going to benefit. What about the athletes in Africa? Nothing is happening in Africa. We are just here. We don't know what is happening. We are just here training. For what? We don't know. Yeah.
So with that, could I turn it over to Aziz Daouda, as you're part of, and maybe Frank Fredericks also on this, part of the, Aziz, you're part of the Confederation for African Athletics. And so in regards to what's happening now with COVID, but maybe also with development in general, because COVID only brings forward some of the inequities and issues that we're already facing African athletics and sports in general. So, you know, what is happening? Are there plans for some kind of African inspiration games maybe? And what do you see going forward at this point?
First of all, if you allow me, COVID pandemic is an exceptional time that all the world is facing. So everybody is innovating, trying to find solutions or something like that. But it doesn't mean that this solution that we found right now, like these meetings in different regions of the world linked by internet, and I don't think that it can be the future of the sports around the world. Sports is something that needs physical contact between sports people, between practicing people, for crowd and this exceptional situation will end one day. I don't know if it will end in 2 or 3 months or 1 year, but it will end one day, and we will come back to the real competition, to the real things, which is the IDN of the sport. It's the contact. And let me say something, because Kofi has written something very important. If you want to build a performance, sports performance, you need to follow some rules or some guidelines. And the first guideline, you have some determinants, performance determinants. You need to follow this to respect this kind of thinking. And from these determinants, there are some favoring factors that you have to follow. For example, when he was talking about Talu, he writes that she has natural potential. And this is very important to know, that we cannot make a high-level performance for everybody cannot be a high-level athlete. This is a kind of discrimination, but it is sport. To be a high-level sportsman or sportswoman, you need to have a potential. So the first thing on which you can build, the first factor that you have to follow to build a performance system is prospection, detection. You have to go and look for people that have this exceptional human potential. From these people with these people you can build performance, and you have to follow scientific kind of working. You cannot be coach because you decide to be coach. You can be coach if you have university studies and things like that. So there are these kinds are determined. If you don't follow this, you cannot have performance. There is no manufacturer in which you can put just young people from this side and wait for them to the other side as high-level performance people. It's impossible, and it takes time. It takes like 6 to 7 years to build a performance. It's not in like this. You cannot decide this for 24 hours. It's a long-term process. So you have to be quiet. You have to be thinking permanently. And now the situation of athletics in Africa. If you look around, at the moment, we participating as Africans for more than 40% of the activity in the world. You cannot forget this. We cannot forget this. This is very important. We are the only continent giving athletes to the world 365 days a year. Every day, there are Africans running somewhere in the world, winning races in the world. For the road races, for example, we are winning more than 90% races in the world. This is very important. That means that athletics is very developed. Is very developed as performance in Africa. We're still facing some other problems. The first problem is Africa is a huge continent. It's not a small continent. You know, the distance from Casablanca to Johannesburg is exactly the same distance from Casablanca to Tokyo. If you go to Tokyo, you cross two continents, Europe and Asia. But within Africa, you can fly for more than 10 hours just to reach a point from another point. If you go to a competition in Mauritius, for example, it took you like 24 hours flying from the west coast of Africa. This is something very important. That means that athletics in Africa is costly. It's costly for the federations, it's costly for the states, and even with these difficulties, we are growing. For example, if you say how it was in the 80s, Africa was like absent in world athletics, except some exceptions. And progressively now we have at least 2 countries every competition, every world championship, we have at least 2 or 3 countries among the first 10 in the world. This is very important. We don't have the same facilities, the same finances, but we have results. That means that we are very genius in our kind of thing. In our plan, in our strategic plan from 2008 to 2018, which ended 2 years ago, the aim was the aim to bring all the African countries to have an activity in athletics. And now we are very proud to say that in the 80s we had some African championships with 20 countries, 25 countries. Now we have competitions with 53 countries from 54. Wow. So that means that athletics is growing around Africa. Even with this, the lack of possibilities, of financial possibilities, because the problem is the financing. And now for the competition, we've been fighting for years to have a competition in Africa among the Diamond League competitions. We have one. We've been fighting to have at least one competition in the continent, the new system, the continental tour. We have one. We've been fighting to have world events in Africa. We had 2 events in Morocco, 3 events in Morocco, and now we have the second event in Kenya, and we had a world event in Uganda. This is very important, but it will take time to bring back athletics to Africa, but it will not be possible until we have a big, let's say, an African worldwide, for example, broadcasting TV. We don't have this. We have TVs by regions, and it's very difficult to sell the competition to the African because they are not enough rich. There is no advertising on these TVs, and it is very poor advertising in that. It's not Europe, it's not United States, you know. And even in Europe, when they hold a big competition, the largest part of the money is coming from Asia and America. It's not coming from Europe. The TV rights, the highest TV rights that is paid to the Europeans, for example, it's coming from the States or from Asia. But we have to manage to innovate and to have it's very difficult for me in English, but I will try.
You're doing well. You're doing well.
You know, the world competition system is concentrated on Europe for many reasons. A historical reason, because it started there, and then because Europe is central as timing. You know, the universal time is an European time. It's not an American or Asian time. It's European time. This is very important issue to be here. So now we have to innovate, and we have to be smart to find the solution how to bring back some of this money to Africa, because we're participating for more than 40% of the worldwide activity, but we don't have we don't have the same amount from the financing system from athletics. You know, we're having like 12% of this. Ça ne correspond pas au. It's not well retributed. Our effort is not till this moment, but the future announces that Africa will become the center of sports in the world. Because if you say what happened right now, in all sports we have Africans rising. Football, of course, athletics for sure, and we have other sports coming. And this is very important to bring back the attention to Africa. Thank you.
Frank, I'm wondering if you maybe have anything to add to the large overview of like the momentum of Africa going forward that Aziz has outlined for us so well.
Yeah, no, I think Aziz have articulated it very well. I think what we need to do as Africans is that we need to start thinking out of the box. I think we might have to use this COVID-19 as an opportunity to set up our own standards. I mean, I think, you know, I think we are easily giving all our natural resources away to the powers. And I think we need to somehow see whether we can get some of these dollars to fund some of our athletes and some of our events. I think it would be nice to see a big event in Southern Africa, probably concentrating on the sprints, something in Senegal, concentrating on West Africa, having something in Nigeria, Ghana, because I mean, of course, when it comes to wealth, we have a lot of money in Africa, but is the money channeled correctly? And I think it's time that we start thinking as sports administrators out of the box and start doing something on the continent so that we are not just exporting our talents and also exporting our money and our wealth to the Western world. I mean, I think, it would be nice for our athletes to travel from Kenya to South Africa to compete in a big event. Why should they go to Europe? And I think we need to start thinking out of the box to see what we can do to get our sponsors, to get the African wealth to sponsor our talented athletes here. Because I mean, I would have really loved to run in Africa than to go and run all over the world. So I think we are at the stage now that we need to start thinking out of the box to make sure that we can think that how we can collectively find money to get a circuit going here in Africa.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. These are ideas that are really important. And so actually, I want to turn to Justice right now. In your role in Botswana in promoting athletics there, do you see ways that you are thinking outside the box? Can you share that, or things that you would like to do that fit into what Aziz and Frank have provided for us?
I think it's very, very important that, like Frank is saying, that we bring a bigger competition to Africa, because to a certain extent we feel that we are disadvantaged in terms of when we go up to European countries or other countries, well-developed countries, where they're always hosting this bigger events like the Diamond League and the World Challenges and stuff like that. By the time our athletes leave here and go to the Olympics without having competed in a major championship or in a major meet like a Diamond League, it is always a bigger stage for them when they get to the Olympics, before they could maybe just had a chance to compete in smaller meets, not as big as the Olympics. So it is very, very important that the CAA also fight. They are fighting. I mean, we are for some events like the World Junior Championships and stuff like that. They come to Africa, and it's a good stage for our young African athletes to experience that level of stage. But also for the bigger athletes, if they fly and go to Europe and then compete in a bigger meet before they have experienced that, it's always going to be something of a stage fright, if I may put it that way, that they will find themselves maybe a little bit out of place. So it will be important for us as Africans to introduce or also even organize meets that are bigger, and we are able to invite all those international athletes to come and compete in our home ground, so that we also have a home ground advantage in terms of people who are supporting us, rather than when you compete in a different country where you have very, very limited support. So you'll find that our athletes, yes, they're always looking forward to going competing in Europe or overseas, because that's where they make good money. But when they compete in some of the meets in Africa, the money is not as good as what they are getting out there. So I think it will be important also that the prize money that in the competition that are happening in Africa, they match what is out there in the world, so that our athletes can also compete here. You know, sometimes we organize competitions, we will have some international meets that we would like our athletes to compete in. But because those meets don't have good prices, the athletes will opt to go and compete in Europe and leave a local meet. So at the end of the day, you find that some of our local meets don't grow because they don't get those top athletes competing in. We end up competing with competitions in Europe where the athletes will opt to go to Europe and compete in Europe rather than compete at home. So I think it is important that we try and balance that so athletes can stay home and athletes can make athletics big in Africa.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I actually, Ed has posted a good question about the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. So I want to turn to Ed and the diaspora, the view from the diaspora. So we do have this new free trade agreement on the continent, but also I'm curious, given you're situated in DC, near Washington, DC, do you see things happening in the diaspora, or from your view outside, do you see some movements that maybe the free trade agreement or different movements might help the development of African athletics?
Yes, I do. I think we're at a very important place in history where the diaspora has taken upon themselves to reconnect with home, the continent, whether it's West Africa, East Africa, Southern Africa. There's a good feel for first generation, second generation born here that they would like to connect to Africa. And so there's been some focus towards Africa. And I think that has been propelled maybe by children who were born here who have an idea of the continent and want to redirect the narration of how the world sees the continent. So that's good. From the diaspora also, I'll use my example is that travel within the continent is somehow difficult depending on how you travel. Until recently, if you wanted to travel from Liberia to Ghana, you may not have a direct flight that goes frequently. Or if you want to travel from Senegal to France, the cost to travel from Senegal to France is a whole lot cheaper than if you're traveling from Liberia to Ghana. For example, Liberia to Ghana, I think round trip is about 500. Senegal to France might be the same amount. But with the advent of airlines in Africa and the agreements that countries have reached, you're able to travel within the continent of Africa without having to go to the hub city and then transit. So that's a good plus because we also have to look at the logistics in hosting these events in Africa. If you want to host an event that is profitable and you also want to get sponsors, from the financial side, you have the sponsors who ask, what is the bottom line? And is this more of a charity or is this more something long-term? You can have one or two events, but from a business perspective, what is the financial gain from it? As the professor said, you have a lot of top African talent that is on the world stage. You have the marathon runners, you have the sprinters. There's no reason why those runners, even if the money is not as top as Europe, cannot come together in some part in Africa to make it worth it. The joy and the joy that one will have to compete in Africa in front of the families, in front of fans, at least for a good bit of time, will be worth more than competing in Europe and whatnot in front of foreign crowds. Yes, you have to survive, you have to get money. But at the end of the day, if you come back to your home and you always have to explain to your family, look, this is what happened. here's what's on TV at a certain point and want to see it happening. Did it really happen? You know, did these things really happen? And the inspiration that African athletes, young African athletes will see from people competing within themselves, I mean, from athletes are tremendous. I remember growing up, Frankie Fredericks, during his years, you know, that was an inspiration for me. You know, at 1992, the World Championships, when I saw those athletes compete, I said to myself, look, this is possible. You know, that was an inspiration. And the first time I really watched a live event was 1991, 1992. Everything else was pre-recorded or on radio. So seeing it in person, or at least seeing it on TV, provided that sense of possibility. And so as we discuss how we can bring it in onto the continent of Africa, at least, we should be able to explain to the sponsors and those who will be our financial backers what's the benefit for them and how this would translate to their bottom line, because we have all the talent on the continent of Africa that can generate that amount. If we're saying that we're the top and we are at the finalists and we're winning races, there's no saying that if the African athletes decide to run in Africa, those sponsors that are overseas will come. It is just that it's comfortable for the financial backers to remain in Europe because they haven't been forced to make the decision to come to Africa. And this is where we have a very outstanding panel of athletes who are now well-versed in the sport world, financial world, that can begin to make it happen and begin to make that transfer.
Thanks. I know, Aziz, you had your hand up, but I want to go to Rose first and then to Aziz. And I also want to bring Norman in. We have about a little more than 12 minutes left. So Rose, given what you've heard here, I'm curious on your perspective as someone who's teaching about this, who also focuses on women in sport. We haven't specifically talked about that, but how do you see the progression of African athletics right now? Are these new changes, is that what's going to bring forward African athletics, or, you know, what's your view?
In the interest of time, since we're running out of time, I'll just mention a couple of points, maybe 3 or 4. One is that African athletics, the future, basically these games, athletics, they have to be, held in the continent. We are always being responsive to European or other, the core countries, Europe, USA, and so forth. We have never really focused on the continent itself. So that needs to change. We have the resources, we have the sponsorship to have African centers athletics. We may have to have or create a diamond league just for the African continent. We can have a center. We have the money to do that if we could convince our leaders to have one major stadium that has everything in North Africa, have one in West Africa, Eastern Africa, and Southern Africa. We can rotate among them ourselves to make money for our people. We need the youngsters in the continent to see our runners and basically get motivated for them. So when they go to Europe, actually, or America, or United States rather, they can actually challenge them. Second point is African women. We have not discussed about the African woman at all in this context, in terms of what have they done for the continent, okay, given the gender roles. And I have to say that the African woman in sport has been able to re-articulate the cultures they are brought up in to sort of interrogate the Western woman in that space. If you go with the European-centered perspective, how women are viewed, they are not the same as African women, but we have used the Western woman lenses to view the African woman location. So we need to have an African-centered way of looking at a woman who was able to be able to participate as a mother, as a sister and so forth, and be able to question the place of a woman in the global state. At the same time, they've been using their the money they make overseas, to help build their communities. I'm not underplaying the role of men, but I'm just saying what the women has done for the continent. So basically, we need to embrace both the young boy, the young girl growing up, and give them resources to make them really the best they can be. The last point I think I need to mention here, because of the interest of time, is that the idea of performance. I was an athlete myself. We have skill set that they are nurtured when we are growing up, based on lifestyle, based on the environment we grow in. So when we have those, grow those with the best coaches, we are able to challenge the best they can be outside Africa. So I think we have everything. The only thing I caution us is the idea that we have, which we've been told, I in particular have been told I run well because I have some genetic potential or genetics I was born with. There's no, from my standpoint, and I said in a conference in the United States a while ago, that if you are going to say, as an African lady from Kenya, from northwestern of Kenya, Rift Valley, that you can tell me by participating in NCAA and winning 11 times, being all around American, there are some gene, they never harm, show me where it is. Where is it located exactly? Is it on my, my neck? Is it on my foot? Where? Because you can extract those and share with everybody. African continent is we're about sharing. So I think if we do that, we really undercut the strength and determination of our coaches to really work with the youth day in, day out to be the best they can be. And of course, we have something you're born with. The problem with that is until you quantify that, you quantify exactly what percent I was born with, what percent can be attributed to excellent coach. We are doing really a disservice to an athlete. If you come to me and say, you are born with it, the coach tells me, what's the point of me running if I have predisposed potential that I'm going to beat an American lady, American girl? They're going to say, you go back to the continent because you have something we don't have. So I think we have to say our coaches on the continent are outstanding. They give us, we just need them to give them resources that they need, technology that they need to make us the very best and can challenge the best in the world at any given time. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose. Aziz, you wanted to say something?
I think to go further in our discussion, we have to start from the reality. What is the reality around the world today? And for many years ago, or 10 of years ago, there is no money in athletics out of Europe. There is no money in athletics out of Europe. If you go to Asia, let's say, what happened in Asia? Nothing. If you go to America, even the American people coming from the richest country in the world have to go to Europe to win the money. This is athletics. This is the reality. So the problem in Africa is not to hold a meet with all the Africans. We have meetings with Africans. We have to know this reality. We have big meets in Africa. We have countries where the national program is a huge one. In South Africa, in Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, a lot of countries that have a year program with many competitions. Every weekend you have competitions and things like that. This is not the problem. The problem is to push the federations that are not enough working or are not enough strong to build an athletics in their countries. Because till the moment, we have 7 federations in Africa that even not have an office. This is very important to help them to have this. There are like 12 federations that having a lack in their management. We are working with them to build some good management in their countries. There are Africans, there are 5 countries who never hold a national championship. These are specific problems in Africa in which we have to work on. to build an African athletics. Now, our results still at this moment are very, very good. We are still working on to better everything. For the moment, for example, how we build the performance in Africa. We have countries that have possibilities. South Africa, Morocco, that they have their own system to build performances, and they have good performances at world level. But we have countries that haven't this possibility because there is a lack of financing. So the solution was to build centers. Around Africa, we have 7 centers, AADC, we call them AADC, African Athletic Development Center, where we concentrate athletes coming from the regions in Africa where there is no possibility to train at high level, to let them train at high level with high level coaches. For example, when we're talking with our friend Anthony and Talu, they started in Dakar, in the center in Dakar. And now we are building with Tony a center, we have project, and we will build a center with Tony in Abidjan, another one. We have center in Lomé, a center in Nairobi, a center in Dakar, a center in Cairo. And we are working because this is the specificity of Africa. There are countries that will have not enough resources to put money in sports for maybe 20 more years. We have, as confederation, as the institutions who is responsible for that, we have to build something with these countries. We have to help them. That's why we have a move with the African Union, and we are working with ANOCA also to build things, and we are working with World Athletics. And for women, you may know that we have 2 women at the WA World Athletics Committee. We have 2 women, Nawal Mutawakil and Beatrice. This is very important to have two African women at that level of the decision, because it's the highest level that we can reach in athletics, to be member of the IAAF committee, World Athletic Committee. And we have 2 women. This is very important. We pushed Beatrice to be, Nawal was there, and we pushed Beatrice to be there, to have two African women in this thing. At the CA committee, we have not 100% parity, we have not 15%, but we are 30% are women. So we're working on women. Among the experts, the World Athletic experts who are working on women on this matter of women's side, we have 2 high-level Africans, African women working on that matter. This is because the reality is not thing. We can start to talk about things that we don't know, but we have to put our hand on the reality and then start to say things. Thank you.
Thank you. So we are rapidly approaching the end of our time here, and obviously there is so much more that we could talk about, but we want to respect everybody's time. And I want to point out that we are planning to have more conversations, podcasts, other things. There's also some talk in the chat around research, and Rose and others are very involved in the research. So we really want to, I know Luzanne is going to be pursuing a PhD. So that's another area, and that's specific for Sports Africa to really push forward. So we hope that everyone can continue with this. And I actually, I want to go to Norman for the last word. And because the elite is, of course, incredibly important. That's where if there is a media attention, that's where it is. That's where the money is. That's where the people aspire to. But Norman is working at the grassroots. And so to raise it up from there, Norman, I'm curious, from what you've heard here today, what is going to be particularly meaningful to the young athletes that you work with at the grassroots level?
Yes, thank you very much. It's very great for me to be part of such a great team, to listen to the insights of Aziz, Frankie Fredericks, guys that I saw on TV when I was young. This will motivate us, and I will go back, and I've learned a lot of, especially what they said about the lifestyle in Kenya. If we can organize our kids to make it a lifestyle. And I also listened to you about the problems you have. So it is as you said, we got at grassroots level, we have more problems. You know, in South Africa, the inequalities inherent from our history. So we as on grassroots, we are struggling. We are struggling with poverty, gangsterism, and all that things. We have little financial support. We rely on our own funds to help the kids. I listened to you guys. You said that on youth and junior level, there will be maybe more exposure in Africa. I hope that some of these events will be in South Africa, so that we can take our kids, that they can see there's hope for them when they're older. And I hope that Faturan, you will heard about Faturan in a few years' time, in the next Olympics. There's a girl there with us who can those 400 meters hurdles. So maybe if she makes it, you must remember that the problems that she faced. We have a lot of problems, and she's coming from the problems, and she's hopeful to be one of the athletes to go to the Olympics, but she don't have a sponsorship. So thank you for being part of this. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, everyone. As I said, we could go on and on, but it is now time for us to close. The panelists, you've been wonderful. We could have talked to each one of you for 90 minutes, I think. And we will hope that this will continue, this conversation will continue offline, online, and in multiple formats. Thank you so much. And thanks to all of the people in the audience for staying tuned, giving us your questions. And we have another one of these events coming in August, so look on our website for more on that. So with that, I think we can sign off. Again, thank you to everyone so much. Bye-bye.